someone's jet skiing.
Whoa, yeah, that's crazy. They're going fast on that boat.
They're ready for jet skiing. Look at it. There's boat races.
I think this might be the biggest city in Fukuoka, Kyushu.
Look at it. There's boat races. People sit there and watch the boat races.
That's very cool, actually.
I'll probably get to
Never seen that before. Big city life. And we just have a little bit of time here. Talk about Mongols, eat some food, fly out. God bless it.
Why are you on my iPhone?
Like some Chinese food, actually. Alright, third city that we're running through. This one the shortest amount of time. The one I wanted to spend a lot of time in, but Nagasaki was a good amount of time for that. I like that place too. Mizuyaki also good. Fukuoka, only could tell one Mongolian story here and try some good food. It's actually the biggest city in Kyushu. A good ramen spot there. Alright. Ready? Good eel place. Yeah, you know, the classics. Ramen, eel. I think that was Chinese food over there. Alright. Let's walk toward the sea, tell the story about some Mongol failed invasions of this coast. We're close to the mainland of Asia here, closest point there is in Japan. Japanese envoy ship to Tang Dynasty China. That's really old. Envoy ship to the Ming Dynasty. And ship with authorized seal. China, Korea, not too far that way, just like 100 kilometers. Hakata Bay. Let's tell some stories here. Fukuoka, Hakata Futo. Hello, closest point of Japan to mainland Asia. About 300 kilometers to Busan, South Korea, that way. Hakata Bay. Another quick history thing here. So, you know, over 3,000, 4,000, maybe 10,000 years ago, up to, peoples came into Japan and populated it through waves and intermingled with whatever people were here. And that most definitely happened right around here, probably, because it was the quickest point to come over. Because all Japanese people, through genetic testing, they found out have some ancient, you know, indigenous DNA mixed in with waves of immigrants from the mainland of Asia, Korean and Chinese, you know, not recently, but very ancient admixture. All right, we're gonna tell one story here, though. It's pretty intense. That happened right on this bay. Actually, two. The same thing, though. I'm in Fukuoka, Hakata Bay right now, and I'm gonna tell a pretty crazy story. But I just realized something. We're gonna talk about the Mongols mostly, but I have been the furthest west the Mongols have gone in Poland, Krakow. Been the furthest south that the Mongols went in Java, Indonesia, and now I've been the furthest east that the Mongols tried to conquer in Japan. Pretty crazy, that territory. The largest continuous empire in history, even though they didn't really conquer those places. They attacked those places, including here. That's the main story I'm telling. A big symbol, though, of Japanese unity and resilience. About exactly 750 years ago. But the main thing here is where I am is Hakata Bay. So this city I was hoping to stay in a little bit longer. It's got a lot of history. You know, this is where actually during the Han Dynasty China, they recorded a kingdom that existed about here and gave a golden plaque to the leader. And also there was lots of trade with the Tang Dynasty China and a bunch of other stuff. Buddhism came through here. Oh, that's the biggest thing, geography. This is the closest point to mainland Asia and Japan. So just about 300 kilometers that way is Busan, South Korea, which I've been to about 2 years ago. and I told this similar story I'm about to tell, which is weird, but there's a cool tower, Hakata Bay Tower. All right, so nearby here, some pretty intense stuff happened. Can't do the whole history of Fukuoka. I would love to do that someday, but we're just gonna tell one story. Right around here, 1274 and 1281 AD, two massive Mongol Empire invasions. Both ended up being destroyed by the divine wind, typhoons, sinking their fleets, and also with heavy defense from the Japanese defenses, especially here in Hakata Bay. The main site of these events and landing point was right here, modern Fukuoka, Hakata Bay, which I can't quite see out to the open sea there, but down that way, that's where the Mongols came from, conquered Korea, where the city of Busan is now, the second largest city in Korea. Fukuoka is a large city now, though, up around over 5 million people, I think. But at the time of this happening, you know, it was a lot smaller. The population was mostly around here along the bay, traders and fishermen. But this is the closest point to mainland Asia. And I was there in Busan about 2 years ago. I never released a video. Maybe I should do that and I told like this similar story looking out at the sea from the opposite direction. Yopaseo, no, that's my phone. Annyeong keseyo, chingu, Koreans out there. Not too far, 300 kilometers. All right. What happened? Quoting the online world encyclopedia a little bit on this one. In both cases, the Japanese, and especially the samurai warriors, vigorously defended their shores, but it would be typhoon storms and the so-called kamikaze, or divine winds, which sank the drowned countless ships and men, thus saving Japan from foreign conquest. The whole glorious episode, which mixed divine intervention with martial heroism, would gain and hold mythical status in Japanese culture forever after. Ooh, I like that. Maybe that's why this horse in the shrine with the flag is here. So, Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, ruled the Mongol Empire at the time of this story. He set up the Chinese Yuan Dynasty with the capital of Dadu, Beijing. And he still hadn't conquered the southern Song Chinese. Ooh, a little pleasure boat going out there with karaoke. Is that what that is? That's really funny. I want to get that real. Looks like a little karaoke pleasure boat going out there. That would be fun. Interesting. All right, let's walk around this shrine a little bit. Tell this story. Hakata Bay. Okay, so Genghis Khan, you know, he had the largest empire extension, land empire of all time, but then it fractured into a couple different pieces. That's a long story about Mongols. There's lots of good podcasts about that. But Genghis Khan, he had the eastern section and set up the Yuan Chinese dynasty, taking out the Jurchen people, I think they were. Yeah, Jurchen in the north of China. And still, though, at the time of this, hadn't conquered the south of China, which was the southern Song Dynasty, which was still fighting off the Mongols. But before he wanted to finish that conquest, which he ended up doing, but before that he wanted to, for some reason, conquer Japan, the land of the rising sun. Nobody really knows why he had his eyes out here towards the sea. Maybe it was for resources, like hearing about gold that existed here, like the famous Venetian Marco Polo wrote in his diary. Maybe it was eliminating the trade that the Japanese had with the Song here, southern Song, their enemies. So they probably went to southern China from here, or different parts of Kyushu Island. maybe it was adding the grand warriors and samurai that he could add to his multicultural war machine, which help him conquer other places. Or maybe it was retaliation for the pesky Wuku Japanese pirates plundering the shores starting around this time, 1200s AD. Which those pirates lasted for a long time. But maybe it was a combination of all of those. It never was written down. But that was the goal, was to conquer Japan. But at first, which was the Mongol way a lot of times, diplomacy was tried between 1268 and 1274, sending emissaries to Japan to convince the shogun to become a vassal. So he, sent emissaries and basically told them, you could be the king of this, ruler of this territory, you just have to pay tribute and pay tribute and what's this little thing? That's kind of cool. Pay tribute. That's kind of how Korea was managed, and a couple other places in the Mongol territories. But from 1268 to 1274, the emissaries came with a little hidden threat of, if you don't do what the great Khan wants, maybe we'll invade you and take you over, and you don't want to upset the Khan. So they didn't comply. There was no response. The Kakumura shogunate in power since 1192, and the emperor gave no response. Instead, what they did was, right around here, especially in Hakata Bay, built up fortifications and other spots around northern Kyushu, the most likely landing spots that threat might come to fruition, which I'm not sure if there's any fortifications left. My hand gets tired holding this thing. But I don't know. I couldn't find any of my research. I'm cut on time, but I wanted to tell the story while I'm walking around here. So, 1274, on the other side of that factory, the other side of the sea, the Mongol forces gathered their invasion force. The fleet of around 900 ships and up to 40,000 men left Busan, Korea, to here, plundering but also meeting resistance on the smaller islands as you reach Hakata Bay. So there's a bunch of small islands before you reach here that have some population. But they quickly overmatched the smaller forces. The Mongol warriors, not very used to naval war, they're better horse archers and that kind of thing. Shock tactics and invasion by land. But they also included many thousands of conscripted Chinese and Korean and other foreign soldiers in their army. And it's almost exactly 750 years ago. They had the even date mentioned. So, yeah, pretty much 750 years ago. So they landed here at Hakata Bay. Not sure where. It's a large bay. But somewhere around here, the Mongols landed 1274, 750 years ago. And again, I quote, the Mongols won the first engagements thanks to superior numbers and weapons. The powerful, these kids are having fun playing football. I always get thrown off. Let me go towards the sea again. The powerful double horn bow and gunpowder grenades fired by catapults. Man, imagine that coming into shore right here. And swarms of arrows, long arrows shot by huge bows. Whoa, Jesus. And the more dynamic battlefield strategies using well-disciplined and skillful cavalry. Okay, so they unloaded with horses onto the land here. Holy crap. Which responded to orders conveyed by gongs and drums. Dong, boom, ba, ba, bong, dong, bong. Dun, 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 bong, bong. Ah! Phew, man, imagine the Mongols just pulling up here. It's crazy to think about. So the Mongols had other effective weapons too, such as armor-piercing crossbows and poisoned arrows. In addition, the Japanese samurai, had codes of conduct. There's that Japanese flag, horse, or a horse maybe. The Japanese samurai that were here in defense were not used to combat involving mass troop movements, as they favored allowing individual warriors to pick their own single targets. So, how the samurai did things was they would be like, all right, who's up my rank? Who am I going to fight hand to hand by sword? The Mongol army came in here and just had all this crazy stuff going on. So, strangely, though, they made a lot of progress, the Mongols on land here. And they, just imagine the boats being docked out there somewhere. And all the carnage, people retreating if they, lived near here. Families and stuff, Hakata Pier. So, strangely, though, probably a bad decision in hindsight. After 3 weeks of making a bridgehead here, the Mongol force didn't go any further inland. Thought maybe because of the death by arrow of one of their samurai's arrow of one of their conscripted Chinese generals, or they might have had supply problems, or this original 1274 mission could have been a reconnaissance mission for a later planned larger attack, which ended up not happening. We're going to explain why. So they went back to their ships out here, parked 900 ships. They didn't take too many losses. They were parked out here in Hakata Bay as the sun comes out. They went back to their ships after 3 weeks of fighting in progress here on the mainland. And in their ships, a massive typhoon storm hit. Unexpectedly. Sinking a third of the ships, killing all on board, and sinking their equipment. And they were forced to retreat back to Korea, 300 kilometers that way. So that was the first Mongol attack that happened right here, which is super crazy. I wonder if any metal or equipment or swords or coins or anything was ever found along this bay. Probably. It's so built up now, it's totally different. But what a horrible death to drown in a storm at sea out there. Most people not knowing how to swim in history, long ago history. Gruesome death. Just drowning. So that was the first Mongol invasion, one of two here at Hakata Bay. Pretty crazy. The other one was even more intense though. That's 10,000 or more Mongol soldiers, Koreans and Chinese in the army of Kublai Khan drowned out here in a typhoon. So then he kind of forgot about Japan for a while, but it was always in his mind how that didn't work out. The Khans didn't like losing Mongols. But again, diplomacy was tried. So 1275, they sent, and again in 1279, emissaries were sent over to Japan to say, oh, sorry about that. You should join the Mongol Khan, the ruler of all the world that the sky, under the sky. The Mongol Empire stories are always so crazy. But this time, the emissaries weren't met with any nice welcome, like last time when a few of them stayed in Japan for a couple of years and visited Kyoto and stuff like that. This time, I don't know if they exactly came here, but other parts of Japan, they were welcomed at the beach, the Mongol emissaries, and beheaded by samurai sword right on the shore. And word was sent back to mainland Asia over there, to the Khan, that we're not submitting to the Mongol attacks after what you did a couple years before. So word was sent back to Kublai Khan. This enraged him, but he was bogged down with some other problems of his empire and the borders, mostly with the southern Song Chinese, which still hadn't been conquered. And in this interim between the two Mongol attacks, the Japanese heavily fortified Hakata Bay. Actually, there was a huge wall somewhere along here and a bunch of fortifications, and they were prepared for them to come back again. Very similar, which is interesting. Strangely, I saw the exact same phenomenon on the other side of the world in Krakow, Poland, where they built after an original Mongol attack in the 1240s, though, so this was a couple decades earlier, but in the 1240s, the Polish, after a brutal attack by Kublai Khan or something like that, they built up some large walls. Remember those city walls in Krakow? What are you doing over there, sleeping? That was a long time ago, but we're on the far east and the far west of all Mongol territory. How crazy is that? Or attempted territory. Longest empire ever. Alright, she's not so into history. She likes the food more. And funny things. That's okay. I'm a history nerd. All history nerds that are listening to me, big shout out to you, man. I love this kind of stuff. Alright, let's keep it going. Alright, and so in 1281, after those two emissaries were beheaded, they did not submit to the Mongol Khan, an even larger force was assembled at Busan, South Korea, 300 kilometers that way. That cruise ship might go nowadays. I want to ride that someday. Yes, it does. Overnight boat. So anyways, it was about this time 4,400 ships and a multi-ethnic force of up to 100,000 men. Kublai Khan wasn't gonna face embarrassment again, and after his emissaries got beheaded. So again, after easily passing through the small islands, I think you can see one of them out there, past that red lighthouse. You know, you can't get a clear view of the open sea. We're in this large bay, but after easily getting past the small islands, the fleet split in half in Hakata Bay. One heading north to Honshu, where actually they were quickly rebuffed at a city called Nagato, and you know that ended up not working out, so they turned back here. A bad move. Quote, at Hakata, the Japanese put their defenses to good use and presented a stiff resistance. The fortification walls somewhere along here, probably far inland, this is reclaimed, but the fortification walls did their job, and this time the attackers could not establish themselves permanently on the beach, resulting in much shipboard fighting. So the samurais were rushing out to this boat and they were docked on the shore. Arrows were flying and they're both ways and all their crazy weapons. Man, it must have been a horrible, crazy scene right around here. There was a lot of, so they didn't get a beachhead that last invasion. Eventually, after heavy losses, the Mongols withdrew. First to the Shiga and Noki Islands, and then to Iki Island. So these islands are out here in the Hakata Bay. All those boats retreated. The heavy fighting, the resistance of the walls, the massive amount of thousands of samurais right around here. Oh, it must have been so crazy. I wonder if they teach this in Japanese school. Probably, because it's one of Japan's proudest unifying moments in all of its history. And then the Japanese went on the counter-offensive. They sent small boats, maybe like that one, but there's a small boat heading out now, at night especially, to go and harass the Mongols hanging out on these islands, Mongol forces. They did constant raids into the Mongol fleet using small boats and much courage. much of the later stories of samurai heroics come from this episode of the invasion. So the story kind of leaves this area of Hakata Bay, but this was the main point that the Mongol forces thought they would have easily captured this area and captured all of Japan, which they're pretty used to, easily defeating almost everyone they face, massacring people, setting whole villages on fire. But the Japanese were tough, and let's tell the rest of the story walking around again. My hand of rest. Thank you, travel beautiful lady and camera woman, travel partner, beautiful. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay. Anyways, so the Mongol massive fleet took heavy losses. They retreated from this area slightly to the south, a good ways to the south, more near Nagasaki, Nagasaki Prefecture. Between 40,000 and 100,000 more reinforcements from the mainland Asia, from China, southern China, and the survivors of the other fleets met them south of here at Hirodo in the Imari Bay to make another attempt at a deeper inland push. Which is kind of like a third invasion in a way, with that many people coming in. You know, ancient sources, they always have these huge numbers, 40,000, 400,000. You never know what exactly is true though, but all along the coast of Kyushu, though, defenses were ready for them. And down there, to the south of here, a battle raged for weeks. Again, unable to make a beachhead, the Mongol forces were forced back to their boats at night. And they had to, keep moving along the southern part of Kyushu over there, trying to figure out the best tactic to win this battle. This next part was incredible. Miraculously, again, a divine wind came, even a stronger typhoon, because that one was actually in typhoon season, August. An even stronger typhoon hit. So many Shinto priests, this is a Shinto shrine right here actually, Shinto priests and Buddhist monks predicted there would be divine intervention to protect Japan. And this actually led to a huge upsurge in religious believers after this. Maybe that carries on to this day. So the storm south of here, but they probably felt it here too, if it was a massive typhoon a little bit. The storm sunk most of the fleet, smashing the vessels into the coastline. Tens of thousands dead. All those reinforcements, the survivors from the battles here and elsewhere, most sank in this second attempt. Crazy. Thousands of survivors did make it to shore on this time. Many were injured or messed up from the whole situation. Food was probably running low, and the samurai and the Japanese just went to the shoreline on the beach, not here but down there ways where this happened, and just executed everyone on the spot, cut their heads off. God, thousands of people. Bodies were probably rolling up to the beach. But some of the Song Chinese that they discovered, which were their allies, they didn't execute and let them survive and brought them on shore. It was kind of messed up. I just saw something in the water. What was that? Something kind of big. Otter, maybe? Did you see that? I don't know, maybe it was an old Mongol ghost peeking his head up. Now, the messed up part, though, is if you were conquered by the Mongols, you had no choice. You had to join their army. So basically fighting for who conquered you. You know, a lot of them obviously didn't want to do that. And a lot of the conquered peoples were used as cannon fodder. Oh, it was a bird. Used as cannon fodder. They didn't really have cannons, but you know what I mean. The foreigners did the first waves of attacks, which many died. But a lot of people, conquered peoples, proudly joined the empire. You know, kind of were like, you know, if I can't beat them, join them, kind of thing. But anyways, everyone went down all together. This next part's kind of crazy. The fleet again was forced to retreat. The survivors, any survivors, hardly any was left, but most died. And it was likely that the ships were poorly made because they were rushed to get this second invasion going and reinforcements over here. So they, you know, analyzed some of the boat making techniques, and they had some parts missing, and they're poorly made. Definitely not to withstand a storm. To make the Khan's wishes, you know, of invasion. And Mongols, they weren't sea peoples, so they didn't really know they had to use Chinese experts to make boats as quickly as possible. Korean too. So the Mongols never again attempted another invasion. This is the closest Japan was ever, in its long history, closest it ever got to being conquered by a foreign adversary. Other than, if you think about it, by America in World War II, you know, where atomic bombs, I was just in Nagasaki at the atomic bomb site. Atomic bombs were dropped on civilian populations instead of doing a full-scale invasion and conquering, I guess, but you know, instead that was done, forcing a surrender and promise of rebuilding an alliance, which America still has to this day. So that's a whole nother story. Definitely. So the Mongols, though, they would go on and be successful elsewhere. They did end up conquering the Song Chinese, but they also failed in Vietnam, northern Vietnam, where I also learned about this story. Another place where I was, where this massive empire happened, tried to conquer. That was too tropical, was one of the problems there. And the Vietnamese, again, like against America in the more recent war, were good on their own turf and hid and attacked them. Yeah, that's another story though. But another one they failed was in way down south in what is now Indonesia, Java. But a lasting peace did occur. The Pax Mongolia, it's called, lasted well into the 1300s, till the beginning of the Ming Dynasty China. As for Japan, troops and defenses were constantly manned here in Hakata Bay. So they kept up those fortifications and walls, fearing of a third attack, which they thought was imminent at any time. All the way until 1313. So what is that, 1281? Yeah, decades later. 40 years almost. So they had to pay for all those soldiers, and there wasn't any, you know, conquest of booty and loot in that kind of war when you're just defensive, so there wasn't any money coming in. So the expenditure of that original wall built here in Hakata Bay, 1281, and the cost of the constant soldiers that were stationed on all the fortresses along the shore here fearing of that third Mongol attack really drained the economy and led to some agricultural problems and all kinds of Middle Ages stuff and ruling territory that I'm not totally familiar with. But it drained the Japanese economy, and the shogunate at the time had a rebellion against him, and the emperor started a new shogunate in 1333. So Emperor Go-Daijo lived from 1318 to 1339, eager for the emperors to regain some of their long-lost political power, stirred up a rebellion, which resulted in the eventual fall of the Kamakura shogunate, who defended Japan so amazingly against those two Mongol attacks, helped by two typhoons. The main theater of those attacks was here at Hakata Bay. One of the typhoons sunk the fleet right out there. But he's used so much money doing that, defending Japan, that the emperor had a rebellion against him and installed the Ashikaga shogunate. So, quote, going by this Japanese flag would be cool for this one. End of the video. Here at Hakata Bay, Fukuoka modern city. Massive tower. Peaceful times. It's been here for the most part since then. For the Japanese of the 13th century, the threatened Mongol invasion was historically and politically a major watershed moment. It was the first time ever the entire a major watershed moment. It was the first time the entire military might of Japan, the land of the rising sun, the people of the rising sun, first time ever the whole nation, all the islands had to be mobilized for defense of the nation. Until then, even foreign wars were little more than squabbles that involved one or another faction with Japan. Essentially domestic affairs. With the Mongol invasion, the first came here out to the bay out there. With the Mongol invasion, Japan became exposed to international politics at a personal and national level as never before. Cool. It's one of my favorite stories of Japanese and world history. Heard on many podcasts like Dan Carlin and History of China podcast. Probably some others. Dan Carlin Hardcore History, I'm sorry. It's a crazy story. History on Fire, that's a good podcast. I heard that story also. And yeah, that's it from Hakata Bay. Couldn't find any ruins of the wall or anything exactly to tell that story yet. Didn't have time, but this was a pretty cool spot to do it with the shrine and the tower. And maybe I'll see some other cool stuff in Fukuoka to show at the end of this video, but that was the main thing. Very historic city. Very cool. Crazy story that happened right around here 750 years ago, and God, the math. A few years after that, 1274 and 1281 AD. Two Mongol invasions happened here. Two Mongol invasions hit by typhoon. One right here, another close by here. Shout out Japan. Rush into a nice dinner, Fukuoka. It's pretty cool, actually. Wish I could see more of it someday. Gotta run. Look at Fukuoka. Fukuoka. Sponsored by Coca-Cola. And And there's a nice little slow moving boat right there. People having a good time. Nice little river side. I like it.